Welcome to Hot Topics After Dark with your host, Q Wiggins, architect and survival enthusiast, and Jeffrey DeShawn, strategic advisor, coach, and author. Let's get talking.
Hey, Q.
Hey, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Fine. What's going on?
Well, I'm happy to see your face. You know, for folks may have noticed that we were going live at 5:30 today, but Facebook said no, boo. So we have recorded and will and have shared with you, and that's why you are viewing this. So we apologize for those that did look for us at 5:30, but you know, everybody working from home, and so it just kept going loading. But here we are. We are still here with you with Hot Topics After Dark Happy Hour edition. We are sipping tea and gonna have some talk. So, Q, what do you have for us today?
So what are we going to talk about today? I think everybody knows that there are 1,000 problems, but solutions just are not coming up. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about what we can do, the power that we still have, because a lot of us are feeling really powerless right now. Like we just have to wait and hope that our leaders do the best that they can or get some things accomplished, but we're not necessarily seeing that. So today I want to discuss the power that we still have as American citizens. So that's what we want to talk about today.
Check that, honey. Power we still have. Powerful, because a lot of folks don't think we have power, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of folks feel like they have been powerless for a very long time. Long time. So how do we tap into this power? Where do we start? I got some ideas and some things. Where do we start?
I think people do. I think one of the main reasons people feel powerless is because the problem gets so big, it's kind of like you want to tune out. So sometimes people are doing other things to tune out of the problem. One of the best ways to stop a problem is to face it head on, to look at the problem and see what is causing me this anxiety or this pressure, and try to create ways to stop or to take an action upon it. And just taking action or having a game plan is a great way to reduce the stress of feeling powerless. So one of the things that that keeps running through my head, and we talked about this a little bit. Sometimes we feel like it's this scene in Get Out where the black guy is asking his girlfriend, "Hey, where are the keys? Where are the keys?" And she's looking for the keys. She's really hunting.
Where are the keys?
Right. And we're still in the place like, I know you got to get these keys because I'm in danger. Well, guess what, guys? Nobody is getting the keys. Nobody ever intended on getting the keys. You are the key.
Say more.
Like Obama said, the that brought tears to my eyes and made me a Barack supporter immediately. He said, "We are the ones that we've been waiting for." And once we understand that power that we have as citizens, we can do a lot more. So I really, it's so many things we're gonna jump into. One of the things that I see is we're sitting at home. Call these elected officials. When you see an article that really pisses you off, when you see something about your state underreporting deaths, or your senator doing something, call him. And not just him, call the people he works with. He works with other elected officials too. Call all of them, because there's two things elected officials listen to: that's money and that's votes. If you are helping them gain either one of those, you will be heard by them.
And on that note, money and votes, I got two civic engagement activities for you. One you already mentioned directly, that will change the game, people. And I know people think it's cliche, but no, literally, money and vote. So on the money, baby boo-boo, it's census time, census 2020, right? The census only comes around every 10 years. And there's all this, misunderstanding about the census and given, people's distrust of, systems and government. But let me tell you something. I spent, I was having a great conversation today with the official from the census, a brother. And here's the thing, that's the money, right? In communities, we're now looking at, communities where we have needed health centers, we needed health services. You're looking at now, you're sitting home and assessing the educational system that your kids have come home out of and going, well, it is because of the census numbers and census tract that funding, that base funding is allocated from the federal government. So family, if you don't want to be only limited to the political whims of the partisan characters that show up to get elected for office, make sure you and everybody in your house, on your street, your block is counted in the census. Because when it's time for funding, that's what the actual folks in Washington who are doing the work go and look at. They say, oh, y'all sent us these numbers, but let me see if the people population lines up. And if the population
don't forget about that part about the representatives. That's how the number. Please talk about,
honey.
Look,
if the population don't line up, the budget folks in Washington saying you're not gonna get that. But here's the thing, that's an elected official, boo-boo. So, honey, they have political power. Well, this is why you gotta vote. Who you send to Washington matters, not only sort of in the partisan political piece, but these are the folks who are deciding whether they're going to advocate for, based upon those numbers, and advocate for more resources based upon those numbers. Because if the numbers are low and you still have a large African-American, Latino working population, then you need to be advocating more for them, right? And so, but if you got folks who have biases towards certain communities that they may represent, then you got folks that may choose, well, I'm not going to advocate for them. So you got to vote and you got to get counted in the census. The census brings the money. If we're looking for additional resources in your state, that's how you get the resources there. And then your vote is power, particularly at a moment where I think about all this conversation and disconnect between the federal government and our state government. Well, for those of us those of you out in states, because I'm in the District of Columbia, you have an extra power they don't have. Call that governor up. Call that state delegation up. Their office, they got staff working for them, and that's how they hear and set priorities. I've worked in the mayor's office here in Washington and worked with state leaders across the country. The issues that those staff persons' phones and emails are logged up with are the ones that permeate to the top of that check-in with that elected official. That's why you got to call and email people.
I was more referencing the number of representatives you get, right? So
yes,
let's just say my state has 100,000 people, but only 50% of those folks do the census. But another state has 50,000, and all of them do the census. We're both going to get the same amount of representatives, even though I have twice as many people. So a lot of states have a lot of people who are afraid to do it, but they cannot touch you with the census. They cannot use the census against you at all. They can't do it, period. So we have to understand that the number of representatives that we get is based on that census. For some reason, they just can't use, a state ID or a driver's license, count. They have to use the census to determine how many people we're getting, essentially.
Well, this is there's a reason for that, right? There's a reason, because here's the thing that we have to realize, and I think it's so important for Black communities of color, marginalized poor communities. This is the firewall that the founders, however critique of them that you may, this is the firewall that the founders gave us. Every 10 years, the American people have to be counted. And your core requirements of your citizenship in the Constitution are to vote. We had to fight to get that, we know, and to hold it and have access to it, and to be counted in the census. This is our firewall, people. This is how we ensure, because we can point back to the data. If you don't get counted, your elected officials, your advocacy groups, the people that you expect to do the work for you, although we need to be all dialed in doing some of it ourselves, won't have the data to point to if you don't go and get counted. And as Paquita said, as Q said, the number of representative slots that you have for your state and how they structure them is based upon the census. So if you have a community of African-American working class folks or Latino working class folks and you don't show up to get counted, well, baby, y'all not gonna get representation either.
So I want to talk a little bit about how we impact this, right? So
yes,
you as an individual, so you're one person, you feel like, hey, one person can't count. But guess what? When you put when you get a bus load of folks, you get a person a day. It's people in your family. If you get them registered to vote, get some of their friends registered to vote, call them up, get them registered to vote, get them to fill out their census. You can be responsible for 100 other votes. And if you go and look at how many votes some of these elected officials get, it's not as many as you think.
No.
Some states that might be elected a senator, with 100,000 votes, and that's in a whole
it happens.
state.
It happens.
So, we really have to use our resources. And you know what else you can do? You can call those elected officials and say, how can I help and if you don't want to go out, because a lot of us don't want to go out right now, say, how can I help from my house? They will give you a way to help from your house. I remember doing so much call banking.
I mean,
my God.
They will not say no. It doesn't matter, Democrat or Republican. You show up and they will light up, people. Get out of, you live in that state, you live in that community. It doesn't matter whether your governor or your elected official is Democrat or Republican. They've been elected to represent you. Show up. They work for you. That's your dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then on the census right now, we're all sitting home. You can do it from your phone. You can do it from your computer. And here's the beauty of self-reporting. Nobody has to come looking for you. If you're worried about what they're going to do when they access you, well, baby, if you go fill out the form online, you don't have to worry about none of that. Because they just going by house number and the information you put on there, right? So if you're worried about that, take this moment, with your technology, phone, laptop, iPad, census2020.gov, and get it done. Because by doing that, you are literally putting dollars back in the hand of your community and equipping your elected officials with data and power that they need to advocate on your behalf.
And another thing you can do is check if people are valid, because what will happen is a lot of folks are getting dropped from rolls. So if somebody may say, yeah, I'm registered to vote, say, hey, tell them a lot of people are getting dropped. You know how many people got dropped in Georgia when Stacey was running against Kemp? Now we see the impact of Kemp versus Stacey, because everything would be different if Stacey were in right now. So
leadership matters.
Yeah, a lot of people do voter registration, but we don't think about checking people. I know a lot of folks who don't even get on computers. Like, I'm in construction, right? And those guys can build you a whole house. They can build you a building, whatever. But if you ask them to put their name in on a computer, they will look at you like you're crazy. That's just not what they do. They don't want to deal with that. They hammering stuff. They got all this big, ridiculous equipment that they use. They are not trying to play with electronics. So talk to people and see if you can get that in there where you are checking for people to say, hey, I want to make sure you're voted, because a lot of people being dropped from the roster. And that's one of the that's just as important as registering people to vote. No,
especially now in this moment, as we are, some states have We're already into deadlines where folks have missed voter registration deadlines and what have you, particularly for primaries and things. And so, yeah, the next piece is, yeah, definitely with folks who've always voted, have you checked to make sure? I had to verify, or somebody else had to verify? Definitely. I mean, you've given us a lot to chew on. There's a lot that we actually can do in these moments where we're sort of forced to acknowledge the flaws in our system and the flaws of our leaders. Well, there are things that we can do. And so voting and the census participation are two of the most simple things that you can do, right? To make sure.
And reach it out to the politicians.
Yes.
Reach it out to your elected officials to see how you can, because if you're calling to see how you can help, and you're like what's called like a power volunteer, you always ready to help, they respond to power volunteers different.
Oh yes. And when it comes down to a volunteer, partisanship don't matter. I remember the faithful who shows up, because at the end of the day, where do they show up every 2 to 4 years? In your face. Not in Washington, in your face. So as Quita said, we're sitting home. You getting upset about something that you don't like, you're not happy about, you're hearing about in your community or your state. Send that email. Pick up that phone and make the call. Because that is how you access your equity in America. It is through our systems. We can shake it. We can talk all we want, but we have a system of democracy here. And the way that we tap into that equity and influence our equity is by voting and making sure that we account it in the census. So, woo, that's a big one, Quita. That's a big one that, is necessary for survival. And particularly here in America. So on the note of survival, y'all know what's coming. Q, what you got for us on our survival tip for today?
Survival tip for today. So everybody needs a contingency plan for electronics going out, communication going out, phones going out. We need a contingency plan. We don't even know our parents' telephone number by heart anymore. So
Word.
Have some of that stuff in memory. Go back to the old-fashioned ways of, having somebody's telephone. I can remember my grandmother's number, 312-483-9399. And she ain't been there, since I was, a kid. But I remember that number from 30 years ago, and that's probably the only number, But so we gotta remember people's numbers. Remember folks' addresses, know how to get there without a GPS, and grab some maps, some physical hand maps. You got to have those. So have a plan for, going back to the basics.
I love it. Contingency plan is necessary. And a real simple start, what my grandma used to do, honey? Put that phone book back on the coffee table, on the kitchen table, on the desk, on the shelf. We sitting around the house. As you ain't got to do it in one sitting. Pull out a book, notebook. We all got this free swag. You go everywhere, everybody getting, and just start writing down numbers that come to mind. Start with your top tier family and connectors. Keep a list, put it somewhere, because every time you go back to it, you're gonna start to remember those numbers more and more as you write new numbers and as you look at that. Put that phone book together and sit it out there, and there you
black
go.
Book.
Hey. Get your black book together, because it might be needed.
Black book. Yeah, the little book.
It might be needed, honey. Woo! And on that note, I just want to uplift the community and just end us on a note to say, we've been in some hard moments lately. And in these hard moments, we try our best to stay positive, uplifted, but sometimes, we just ain't feeling it. And that is okay. And I want to leave you just with the affirmation note of the day to say, you know what? It's okay to sometimes just acknowledge that this shit sucks, right? And certain things in life and systems fucking sucks. But then we have the power of acknowledging them, and we can go, acknowledge it, let it go, and then take control. Because figure out, well, what can I do for me? And as Quita has highlighted for us today, there's several things we can do for us, including voting, calling our elected officials, census, and making yourself and family a contingency plan. So you have what you need, and we will survive this moment as we have survived moments before. Girl, thank you so much, Q, for joining us. I can't say thank you to Facebook because you ain't let us in, but what? We still here, as always. So thank y'all so much, and we will see y'all next time on Hot Topics After Dark.